Hey everybody, what's going on? It's TwoHeadedFlounder. Welcome back to another post-rotation deck profile video. Today we're going over Zoropod as per the request of GamingHunter 492. Yeah, Zoropod is a very strong deck. It might not be good after rotation. It might be great after rotation. It is yet to be seen. We lose cards like Floatstone and Bridget, which are very essential for letting the deck function properly. But there is still a lot of other strong things in the deck, like Lele, Zoroark, and Coco. So ideally this will work out well and allow us to do something. The only thing I will mention is, with the loss of Puzzle of Time, Zoroark-gx are a little bit worse. So unfortunately, we used to be able to run a 3-2 line of Golisopod. I've upped it to a 3-3. I don't know about playing a 4th Wimpod. You could probably drop something in here if you really wanted that extra basic, but we do have a lot of Pokemon in the deck, so I felt relatively okay with doing a 3-3 line. And before the video gets underway, if you guys do enjoy the video, remember to like or subscribe to the channel so you can stay up to date with my future content. And with all that being said, let's hop right into it. So, obviously, the main draw here is Golisopod. We have First Impression for 1 Grass Energy does 30 plus 90 more if we become the active Pokemon this turn. So obviously using Switch, Guzma, retreating a free retreater, something along those lines, we're going to be able to do 120 to 150 damage for a single energy, and of course that's great. Next up we have Armor Press, does 100 damage, so obviously not as good, but we will be taking 20 less damage on the next turn from attacks, which might put our opponent into a 1-hit kill situation to a 2-hit KO situation. So, usually not the attack we're going to want to use, but it can definitely be used. And then we have Crossing Cut GX, does 150 damage, switch this Pokemon with one of your bench Pokemon. Great attack, very synergistic with the card in general, because that means we could throw up something else and then retreat it on the following turn. So 3 retreat cost makes it very, very difficult to play around as well, though, because without switching cards and or cards to give us free retreat, it's a lot more difficult to play. So henceforth, the lack of Floatstone here kind of hurts. Playing a 4-4 line of Zoroark, it is the heart and soul of the deck, honestly. The trade ability is going to allow us to draw 2 cards every turn, plus more if we really want to. Right Speeding is a single energy attachment, does up to 120 damage, 150. So, same idea as Golisopod, 1 energy attachment, do as much damage as possible. And that also has a 2 retreat cost, so with the lack of puzzles and special charge, we're not really going to be wanting to retreat these guys. And a lack of Floatstone means we can't just do 120 damage for your retreat, go to Golisopod, do another 120 damage. So there is definitely a lot of issues with the deck already. But we do have a single copy of Tapu Koko. Koko is going to give us that free retreat, but also has the Flying Flip attack, so we get to spread 20 damage everywhere. What I like to do is I like to use Koko as many times as possible at the beginning of a game. I know sometimes it's not the best idea, but if I can get 3 flying flips off before my opponent will go ahead and knock out Koko, that's 60 damage to everything that they have in play, and I think that's relatively great. Which means, you know, if we hit for 150, that's 210 damage on one of their Pokemon already. So I like the whole flying flip thing a lot, but mainly here for the free retreat. Next up, we have a copy of Oranguru. This is the resource management one. We're going to allow us to put a bunch of cards from our discard pile back into our deck. Now, we can't really chain Guru plays every single turn because of no puzzles, but it's still pretty solid. It's going to allow us to get back our special energy in general, strong supporters, Pokemon, and tool cards. So I think that this is a pretty much instant include in this deck, especially when we dig through half our deck with our ability anyways, so why not go for it. But also, Profound Knowledge, can be a way to counteract some of those safeguard Pokemon that we really don't want to be dealing with. Speaking of which, we have a copy of Shining Lugia because Argent Wing will do 120 damage to Pokemon with abilities. Henceforth, we will destroy Hoopa and Alolan Ninetales. So, that's great. Air Force, it's an attack, I guess. If you really need to, you can maybe get that off. Yeah. And last but not least, we're playing 3 copies of Lele. We want to use Lele as much as possible, get the right supporter that we need. Maybe we need an Acerola for the turn. What is also great about it is its extra basic Pokemon thrown onto the bench to power up Zoroark. I'm not saying that we're going to want to play all 3 Lele in a game, but if we can grab Acerola on certain turns or Guzma on certain turns, it's definitely going to help us out a whole lot. And it's really useful. Again, Energy Drive, great additional attack for the deck. If our Pokemon has 3 energy attached to them, they have like 100 health left. We just attach Double Colorless, go in, get a knockout. So moving on to our item cards, we have a single copy of Counter Catcher because Counter Catcher is just a really good card. With Zoroark, it's very easy to manage to draw into this, which is great. An additional thing that we can do is use Malo to grab another card that we might need. So maybe Double Colorless and Counter Catcher, and that's Lysander and an energy for the turn, and we get a knockout. So I think this is a relatively great card to include. You have to be down in prizes, but I mean, you know, that could really just happen from getting a Zora or Wimpod knocked out. Next up, we have 2 copies of Field Blower. So, not entirely sure what's going on with tools and stadiums yet. It's yet to be seen, but Field Blower seems to still be relatively good. I have 2 copies here just because I have the room for 2 copies. You could definitely drop this for something else, but yeah, it's good. Playing 2 copies of Multi-Switch. I've been saying this a lot lately. I love Multi-Switch in the new format. It just allows attacks of things like Crossing Cut GX, where it's a basic energy and a double colorless following it, to be a lot more useful. Definitely is going to allow us to set up Shining Lugia in a turn as opposed to 2 turns, and I like that a whole lot. So Multi-Switch is definitely one of those cards I'm going to play a lot after the next rotation. Just being able to move special energy around on Pokemon is just great. Next up, we have a copy of Palpad because I put a copy of this in every deck because it's just too good not to use. We have 4 Ultra Ball because it's the best way to search out Pokemon in the deck, and you know, we only have Lele, so we can't even make use of Mysterious Treasure. And lastly, for items, we have Choice Band. We are playing 3 of them. We could theoretically go up. We have Resource Management or Guru, but we're also playing 3 Acerola, so I feel like we're going to save these. And I don't know how many people are actually playing Field Blower in the next rotation. They might have it as a one-off in their deck, but that doesn't mean that they'll hit it when they need to hit it. So 3 Choice Bands should be fine. We have 3 copy of Acerola. So this is a very crucial card. This is a, you're not ever going to knock out one of my Pokemon, but I'm also getting the active out of the way so that I can set up another Golisopod. So, yeah. This is one of those cards that's really very crucial, and it is going to annoy your opponents so much. Seriously, they're just going to be so annoyed, and, you know, they might even scoop. Next up, we have 4 copies of Cynthia. It's the best draw support we have, so of course we're maxing out on that. 4 copies of Guzma because we need the switch effect, plus consistency. It's great. So theoretically we have 6 Guzma in our deck if we really need to. A single copy of Lily because turn 1 Lily is pretty great. We don't want to miss the opportunity to have that. But also we have other supporters in the deck, so there's not really a whole lot of room for Lily. Playing 1 copy of Malo because being able to grab any 2 cards you want for the turn, put them on top of the deck, and just trade for them is great. Again, I've already mentioned that we could grab Counter Energy or Counter Catcher and Double Colorless Energy for a you know, a win on the turn. We could also grab maybe multi-switch or you know, a supporter for the next turn. It's just very useful. Next up, we have a copy of Fan Club because we lost Bridget, but we still want something to help us turn one if we can set up our bench. It's not as good as Bridget, and it will never be as good, but it does allow us to also go through item lock, so that is also an improvement over just Ultra Ball. And we are playing 2 copies of Tate and Liza due to the fact that it's pretty good. We have the switch effect, which is very synergistic with Golisopod, obviously, but also it's an additional supporter that we can use to draw cards. So we have the Shauna effect as well, where we can draw 5 cards. So it's not the worst, it's not the greatest, but it's definitely one of my favorite cards. So last but not least, we're playing 4 copies of Double Colorless because it's obvious. You know, it really is. And 6 copies of Grass Energy. We want to make sure we have the Grass Energy. Lists in the past have played 3. They've also played like 3 Rainbow, things like that. But we really want to ensure we have energy in the deck. There's not a whole lot of ways to get them back besides Resource Management or Guru or a specific card that lets you grab energy. So, yeah, it's useful for powering up Zoroark, using a single energy to use Resource Management, but also pays for Profound Knowledge, pays for Argent Wing. It's just good to have. So we're playing 6 copies, plus, again, multi-switch. There you go. So that's my list for the post-rotation Zoropod deck. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, stick around for more in the future. You can leave a like or a comment on the video. I'd really appreciate it. Thanks so much for watching. Until then, I will see you all next time.